Good morning. It is day 257. We're going to finish the book of Acts today. I'm coming to you from my, what we call the husband's grilling deck. And I'm going to turn the camera around. Maybe I should also get up and show you a little bit. We have a little bit of a quintessential Kentucky view here with floorboard fencing and a basketball goal and a barn out there. It's not all mine. These are our neighbors. So anyway, sunrise coming up over there, you can see. Yes, this is what Kentucky's known for. Those floorboard fencing, rolling hills. I've got like a little bit of that here. Little slice of Kentucky heaven. Anyway, we're going to finish the book of Acts today, and I've called it Smooth Sailing as a little bit of a hook. I'm a hook, yeah, because it's anything but smooth sailing. Like, quite literally, Paul is taken on a rough ride in the seas as he's traveling. Well, first he is arrested and again, it's the Jewish people coming against him, or the Jewish leaders of the day coming against him, making a false accusation. They don't like the trouble he's making. He's a troublemaker, and that's exactly what they accuse him of. You're a troublemaker. We just would like you to be gone. You're breaking our Jewish laws. He wasn't really doing that, but they were trying to contrive an accusation and an argument against him. He states his case before the authorities. There's no clear evidence one way or the other. They decide they don't want trouble from the Jewish leaders either. So they're like, well, they kind of felt stuck between a rock and a hard place politically. The political leaders of the day were like, yeah, so they just kept him in prison for like 2 years. And then finally, somebody new comes into power. I'm not going to go into all the names and all the places. Like, it is a lot in these 5 chapters. And it's chapters 24 through 28. And he is making a case for himself. He's actually found innocent, but he does something strategic here. And he says, I want to plead my case before Caesar. And so it was like he threw a gauntlet down, and once he said it, like, they had to do it. And so they couldn't just let him go at that point. So it's like he intentionally signed up, but maybe he felt more comfortable with that authority. And if he got that abdication at that level, then he would truly be more secure, where if he was let go now, it was still fairly precarious situation with his own safety, and that he might just go through all of this again. So he kind of intentionally signed up to go through a more difficult process, because it was probably more legitimate, more confirming, more safe in the long run, even though it was going to take him on a very dangerous and arduous journey to get to Caesar in Rome. And so they go on a boat and start sailing and start the journey. And then, they're going from port to port. They're having some trouble, and they even see bad weather on the horizon. It is the time of year where the seas are going to get more choppy. We're told that it's heading into fall, so they really had to make a judgment call. Do we stay here for the winter and wait until the waters are calm and the sailing conditions are better, or do we forge on and go? He was like, no, we should stay here, and they didn't listen to him. And so the authorities that he was sailing with and the crew, decided to push on, and they got calm. They got caught in many storms, And without going into all of the details, there was one where it said it was like a tsunami type wave, or a nor'easter was also what it was compared to. And that, so they were just getting beaten by the waves. I can't even imagine. Like, I am not a huge boat person. I like to go out, quietly, smooth water, even just a little bit of chop, like, freaks me out. And so what they're describing here, I was like, it was like reading a novel, I'm telling you. But Paul had an angel come visit him and says, don't worry, like, it's going to be rough, but you're going to be okay. And anybody sailing with you will also be okay. So now, he didn't get the message that it was going to be smooth sailing. No, he knew it was going to be rough, but he knew he would be safe at the end of the day. So what can we learn from that? Like, we actually have turbulent seasons and journeys, whatever word you want to use in our life, lives that come along. And we can either choose to stay in a safe harbor and avoid anything difficult, which there is no avoiding difficult, but sometimes we can trick ourselves into thinking that that's difficult, that we are, and really we're just choosing a different hard. Or we can forge ahead for the greater good, which is exactly what Paul did here. He knew his mission. He knew he needed to get to Rome. He knew God had giving him provision, and even those that were with him. And at one point, the drama that is in these few chapters is pretty good. Like, if you want to read what feels like an adventure novel, read chapters 24. Really 23 is where it started, because that's when he gets arrested. But the whole last 5 to 6 chapters of Acts, you're going to go on an adventure. I mean, they bring us really into the detail of the story. I mean, they're doing everything they can think of. They are throwing anchors out to slow the boat down, like throwing their masts and catching the wind. At one point, it looks like they're going to be able to at land, but the wind takes them out. Are we going to be smashed up against rocks? Are we going to go through the sandbars that could trap us in this one area? Like, all of these scenarios in the rough sea. And they were able to dock at a couple of points, but they couldn't stay there. And then at one point it gets so bad that they've got the lifeboat behind them, and they're getting ready to abandon ship. And Paul says, no, remember, you're going to be safe. I promise you're going to be safe if you stay on the boat. If you get off of this boat, you are going to die. So they listen to him. They see the provision that they have had, and they know who Paul's God is. And so they decide to trust Paul. And they do eventually make it to land safely. But they went through tumultuous storms. And at one point, he said he encouraged them to eat because they had been so stressed out, so beaten up by the weather and the waves and what it takes to navigate a boat through waters and weather like this, that they had stopped eating. And he was like, you've got to eat. And so all 276 men aboard were able to eat. You're almost like Paul has got he's got a lot of Holy Spirit on him, and he's performing. Remember, we're told from yesterday that he now has the ability to perform unusual miracles. And so you get the sense that there is something miraculous happening. Excuse me. Okay. This is why I don't do these live videos often at home, because the dogs, our neighbor dogs just came out and they had to go and say hi. So anyway, excuse that. Hey, this is what, every day it's not smooth sailing. Things can happen and throw us off our game. But it's okay. We just get right back to it. So anyway, you get the sense that even the feeding of this crew was a little bit of a miracle. So, and after that, to help their ship sail better, they even throw off the wheat, their haul of wheat. That was one of the things they must have been transporting, since they were not just Paul, but they were transporting some cargo. Anyhow, so they finally land, and they're building a fire. They're, going to rest for the night. The people on the island, they're like, you are a murderer. You are a bad man, Paul. And they're thinking that all of the consequences that he is suffering, was just justice. But Paul knows differently. And then he's gathering wood, and he gets bitten by a snake. And to the point where it's just like hanging. We're given this visual of a snake hanging from his hand. And they're like, see, we told you, you're a bad guy. You're getting your justice. And they're expecting him to swell up and die. But he shakes the snake off, and they watch him carefully for a few hours, and he's fine. So then they mentally shift gears with Paul, and they're like, ooh, you've got God's provision here. And they even think of him as a God. And so he stays there for a long time, and he's able to convert the people. And the tense of the story also shifts in chapters 27 and 28 back to first person. That's another interesting, it goes from the third person telling of the story to, and we were taken care of. We were safe. The people on this new, in this new community and land welcomed us. Wow. And that God's message, and that he really did take care of them through the storm, and they were able to land safely. And he was eventually able to get to Rome and have his audience before Caesar, and there he stayed in Rome and became, officially free, and free to even now spread the gospel in this new city that he's eventually traveled to. So all these adventures that he's being taken on, and he knows ahead of time, this is going to be rough, but God reassures him, but I'm going to be with you. Just go on this mission. Do what you're told. So we can take comfort in that too. There's nothing about living this human life and even believing a certain way that is going to protect you from rough seas, from storms in life. But what it does do is able you to weather those with a peace of mind and a peace of spirit in a different way, because internally I'm going to get through this. It's going to be okay. Yeah, it's hard right now. Yeah, I'm afraid. Like, you can acknowledge all of those things and also know it's not going to last forever. I'm going to get to the shore. I'm going to get to safety. It's going to be okay. And not only that, I'll be able to look back and see the bigger picture. It's hard to see when you're in it right now. Like, you really do get caught in the storm, and it's hard to see beyond what's happening right now. But internally and in your spirit, you can know and remind yourself, okay, there's something bigger happening here. This needs to happen. I don't have to like it, but I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to get to the other side. And the people that are with me, we're all going to make it together, however that plays out. And we're going to be able to look at the bigger picture of how it all played out and look back and go, wow, that was pretty cool. We survived. Look what we did. Like, confidence, feeling of accomplishment. You don't get that in smooth seas. You don't get that in staying in safe harbors. But what does happen when you knowingly avoid rough seas and challenging seasons, or you want to try to escape them when you're in them as much as possible, and do all you can to minimize your own discomfort, what you end up doing is eroding yourself internally, because you know better. You know that you had what it took. You know you could have done things differently. And so that's an internal betrayal that can cause its own kind of storms, and can be really hard to deal with, because we know that we have betrayed ourselves, that we have not trusted ourselves, that there might have been something bigger and we were playing it safe. And then that creates its own kind of internal storm. So oftentimes, I think the message for us, and that Paul encourages all of us to do, is have a little more courage to go boldly into the storms of life, because there is no avoiding. There is no avoiding. And we can create storms internally that are even worse and more toxic. And the storms of life give us confidence. They give us skills. They give us bonds and friendships and just experiences that we can't get by staying in the safe, smooth waters or safe harbors. When we do that, we're fooling ourselves, and we know that internally. And that, again, that creates its own kind of storms that often are hard to get to the other side of, because we just want to do more avoiding. And so sometimes we'll start behaviors in those seasons because we just can't stand ourselves. And so we've got to do things to distract ourselves and get us out of ourselves, when we would be best served by just moving into the challenges of life and having confidence. And sometimes we have to borrow confidence and just do it anyway, knowing that the confidence will come from the doing. All right, I'm going to sign off now. Rise and shine together, and let my dogs keep making their noises. All right, love you guys. Bye. And we start the book of Romans tomorrow. And just in case you're picking this up at the end, we did, sorry, it went out there for a minute, Acts chapters 24 through 28. All right, bye.